Hello, my name is Stanislav Kinka, I am from the Ukrainian Review, and we started a new series of the interview. Our first interview with the Ukrainian soldier Ivan Tarn. Ivan Tarn was born in Ukraine and he resides in Belgium, and from the outbreak of the full-scale invasion he voluntarily joined to the armed forces of Ukraine. So I welcome you, Ivan, and let's start our conversation. Could you tell about your childhood, about you was born in Ukraine and you raised in Belgium, so what is your story?
Well, when I was 10, my family moved to Belgium. Basically my mother, my brother and me. Well, I finished school in Belgium, joined for French Foreign Legion when I was 19, did my service there. Then in 2014 I returned to Ukraine when everything started with the idea of joining the military, but I did not join then. I had obligations to my family, first and foremost. So in 2015 I returned to Belgium, started working, started a business. Was quite successful. Well, I achieved the goals I set to myself. I had two companies that were quite stable, quite successful. Then with the outbreak of COVID, I got stuck in Ukraine. I was supposed to visit for a few days, but got stuck here with lockdown. That gave me a chance to reconnect with my old friends, with my family. I did a lot of volunteer work in the medical sector. We imported medical equipment from Europe that was badly needed at that time. And from that time on, I tried to divide my time between Ukraine and Belgium. So my business was in Belgium, but I tried to live as much as possible in Ukraine and do my business like in two countries. But like everybody with COVID, business processes started to become home-based, you know. So that helped a lot. So I could actually live in most of the time in Ukraine and work in Belgium. Then in 2022, when
yeah. So what is your first impression when you heard or you saw something about the full-scale invasion? Did you did you thought that it could happen or not? Because it was a lot of news a year before or months before that the Russian forces on the territory, close to the territory of Ukraine, on the borderline, is just increase of the number of the forces. Or you're not involved into the politics at all, so you just live your life with the families, with the business?
Well, I was following the situation, and well, it was all over the news that Russia is going to invade. Like we got warnings from all Western intelligence that they were actually planning to invade, but it didn't seem real to me. The forces that they had accumulated at the border didn't seem enough to do any meaningful occupation. So I didn't quite believe that it will actually happen. And since it dragged on, well, first we were expecting them before New Year, then just after New Year, and I actually already bought tickets to go to Europe. I had tickets because I thought, okay, it's not going to happen, so we can all relax and go on with our lives. I was waiting for it. I was anticipating it, but I didn't quite believe that it would actually happen. It was a big surprise for me when it actually did. Yeah, so
the full-scale invasion was caught you in Ukraine?
Yeah,
in Ukraine. So you was in Ternopil and you was in family?
I was in Lviv at that day. Actually, it's...
What was your first reaction?
Unbelief, I guess. You know, for me it went really surrealistically how it all went down, because the night before the invasion at 12 o'clock at night, I was in Lviv to organize a surprise party for a friend of mine whose birthday is on 24th. Mm-hmm. So we surprised him with a group of friends, and actually when we were toasting and we asked him, what would you wish for yourself? He said the most important thing is peace. And we drank to that, and then I returned to Ternopil. I arrived like 4 or 5 in the morning. Mm-hmm.
So it's just direct time of
yeah,
the
it was,
first bomb then?
And that was the time when first bombs dropped. I could hear a military plane circling around the city, which never happens in Ternopil. So I went on fly radar to see what is going on, and there was nothing flying over Ukraine. Yeah, except for one US drone, one US Reaper was, and for the rest the sky was totally clear. So I understood immediately that something is going on, something quite serious, but still I hoped for some kind of a provocation of airspace or something like that. I didn't think then that it would be a full-scale invasion. Next I got a call from a family member of mine who lives in Vasilkiv, near Kiev. She was shouting on the phone, we are bombed, we are being bombed, we are being bombed. We had an agreement with them that if something would go down, that they would come to Western Ukraine, to Ternopil, to stay with me. So she asking, can we come? I said, yeah, of course, come. And then that was the moment I realized this is serious, and there will be a war.
When you realized to join the Ukrainian military forces, because you have pre-war experience and you just much more well prepared for this war than many of the Ukrainians, man. So, but instead of this, you can help by the non-lethal weapons or some aid or something like this. Yeah. But why you joined to this? It's your decision. It's your. It's not something that crossed your mind in some minute, but it's your decision for the years, because you said that 2014 you wanted to join the Ukrainian forces. Yeah.
I don't know how to put it, but I couldn't have done it other way. It just. Well, I had to participate in defense of my country. You know, just
no way out there.
There is no way around that. Yeah, I didn't join straight away. First few weeks I spent on volunteering, humanitarian projects, mostly. Also supplying soldiers with all with the equipment they needed. We managed to find. Some personal armor, a few helmets, and just equipment in general. Also, we supplied food to guys who were fighting, because it was very chaotic the first day. First days, everybody needed a lot of help. And then after a few weeks, when I managed to collect all the necessary equipment for myself, I just went to Kharkiv and to join some friends of mine, and it started from there.
Could you tell more about the front lines, days, weeks and months? Because it's not only the harsh fighting between the two sides, but it's maybe some intelligence work and so on, maybe some preparing for the missions.
Yeah, I consider myself to be quite lucky that I joined very, I would say, interesting unit, a special force unit of HURMO, the Central Intelligence of Ukraine, and we did a lot of work on the whole front line. So we traveled from one place to the other, and did a lot of interesting missions.
So you just became the nightmare of the Russian invaders.
Well, let's hope so. Yes. Yeah.
So you work mostly at night, just a special military unit to destroy some very how to say Russian units or Russian techniques or something like this.
Yeah, we had special missions basically with from reinforcing infantry to taking out some targets behind enemy lines. Yeah.
But the next step that you took part in the fierce battle of Bakhmut. It's really horrible, and you were injured during this battle. Could you tell more about the Bakhmut days, the Bakhmut weeks? Maybe what was the most horrible the part of this war, just what happened around the Bakhmut, because a lot of the people, a lot of the soldiers died. Just Bakhmut became the like the siege, and this stronghold of the Ukraine made the Russian army really bleed for the months.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's exactly true. What struck me most in Bakhmut was the sheer intensity of the fighting. Wherever you would look, you would see fighting. Wherever you were in the city, the shells were coming down. Everything, really everything destroyed. Nothing still standing as it was before. Everything is shelled, everything is shot, and it went on 24/7. Well, it's as I said, the sheer intensity of fighting that struck me the most. It was like unbelievable. You can't even see things like that in a movie.
So the aerial views say that the Bakhmut became the ruins very, very fast. So you fought in ruins.
Yeah.
And it's not the temporary warfare. It's not just small units of the special military operation groups or something like this, like the American did in some places in the world, because it's like the First or Second World War. So
it's full scale war. I think, yeah, what can you compare it to? Probably Stalingrad or Battle for Ardennes, because of the sheer numbers of forces fighting on this small area. What skills
do the soldiers need to survive in this hell, from your point of view?
It's a too broad of a question in my opinion, because soldiers have different tasks at the battlefield, and it depends on what their mission on the battlefield is.
Okay. Did your unit have some prisoners? Did you ask them why they just joined to this illegal occupation of the Ukrainian territory? Why they just, what they hell doing on Ukraine?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't have a chance to talk to them myself, but my unit captured prisoners, and obviously I've seen the interviews conducted with them, and honestly, I never heard like a decent answer. They never could say explain themselves why they were here and doing what they are doing.
Do you think it's just brainwashed mind in Russia?
Yes, that plays a very important part in it. So the whole public is brainwashed. So their whole idea of Ukraine, of the West, or everything outside of Russia is hostile. That's the idea that's planted in every Russian's head, and not to the point that they would go and fight everybody, but when there is another incentive or just fear for reprisals if they don't go to fight, it makes it okay for them to participate in a war, in the occupation of another country.
So you were wounded during the Battle of the Bakhmut. What makes you more strengthful to go through these challenges? Because you lost a part of your leg, and I even don't even imagine how it's just because you go through this for weeks, for months, and it's not very easy recovery. What makes you stronger?
Well, it's not easy, but in my opinion, it's part of being a soldier. You know, on the 24th, when I made a decision that I will go and fight, I knew that I could get injured, I could even get killed. It's a part of that. me personally, I accepted it before I even went and joined. I knew it would be a very bloody battle, very bloody war, and as a soldier, you must be ready to sacrifice even your life.
Yeah, sure, but your family, maybe your loved ones, they support your decision.
Of course,
yeah?
I get a lot of support from my family, from my friends, even from.
Yeah, sure. So let me turn to another point, because you travel a lot before the war. You lived in Belgium, you lived in different countries, so you know the culture, you know the languages, and you talk with a lot of the people. So what changed between the 2014 and 2022-23? So they are understanding that Ukraine is not the part of the Russian world. They're not understanding that Ukraine is just a bigger separate nation. So what changed during this full-scale invasion? Because we know that a lot of fakes, a lot of fake news up to now, they are just circulated among the Europeans, and some of even the politician parties, they don't want to support Ukraine. So what's your point of view upon this situation?
Well, since I've been living in the West or in Europe since 2000, in my experience, before 2004, there was this. It was very difficult to explain to somebody what's the difference between Ukraine and Russia anyway. It was very difficult to even explain that. Soviet propaganda did a really good job of placing the narrative that Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, one and same people. It's just like some kind of administrative division, and they all have the same history, same cultures, and the languages are basically the same. And so that was the narrative that was really present in the minds of basically everybody in the West, and it was very difficult to explain to them, like, no, we are different people with a different history, with different views, with different ideas for the future. After 2004, it became more prominent. Ukraine came more prominently in the news, but still the narrative was very twisted. It was
twisted by the politics or by the journalists themselves? Both.
I'm talking about a narrative that already was living in the people, and yeah, how did it get there? Through journalists, through politicians, through everything that they consume in media. After 2014, became like an idea. Okay, there is Ukraine is separate from Russia, but there are Russians living in Ukraine, and what will they do about that? What about Ukrainian nationalists? Are they really that bad? That came more into public discussion, into media, so people got a glimpse of Ukraine. They understood that it's a separate entity, but they didn't understand what was going on in Ukraine at all. And now, after the full-scale war, you can really see the propaganda machine work, and you can really see how it tries to influence hearts and minds, basically. Most of people are pro-Ukraine. I'm talking about my friends, people who I talk to, people who I have contact with. They are pro-Ukraine. They support us, but there are still subtle influences, subtle propaganda influences that corrupt their view. And we have to bring the right narrative to them, so they really understand what is going on here.
Sure. What the sources they use? Because from my point of view, we have a lack of the English language sources to describe and to give them a true picture of the Ukraine, not only the war, but now the war is the prominent domain, of course, but about the culture, about the politics, about the situation itself. So maybe it's just a result of that Ukraine before the war will not prepare for this.
Yeah, obviously we were not prepared for this, and well, we couldn't be prepared for something like this. there is, well, most of the people get their news through internet nowadays, and it's very easy to manipulate that news field. We even see situations where quite distinguished Western media outlets are quoting some internet propaganda of what we know for sure of Russian state, because they get they get confused. So what can we expect from ordinary citizens, ordinary voters, ordinary people, basically? And it's up to us as Ukrainians to bring the right message to the world, to bring the objective picture of what's going on here, because there's nobody else that will do that for us.
Yeah, sure. It's only the way to survive of Ukraine as a state,
Exactly.
because you know that a lot of politicians from even the European states, they say that just time for the negotiations with Russia. What is your point of view on this?
No, there can't be any negotiations. In what precedent would be set if we would negotiate with aggressor, with somebody, with a state that just wants to invade and grab land of its neighbors? Well, do we really want to go back to those times, like 2-3 centuries ago, when it was okay to wage war to conquer land? Is that what we want? Like, and what kind of Pandora box are we opening then?
Yeah, sure. In that case, we can talk about the values that Ukraine now defend, the European values, the democratic values.
Yeah, exactly. And that narrative is being butchered from all sides. You know, the idea is not to make people believe the Russian story, but to doubt the Ukrainian ones. Well, the story is very, very simple. We got invaded by a bigger, stronger neighbor that wants to occupy our lands and subjugate our people, and we are defending ourselves. That's a really, really simple and straightforward story, but the propaganda tricks to make it more complicated and
yeah, twist it upside down.
Yeah,
so the Russians say that,
so doubt, so people wouldn't see this simple, straightforward stories which everybody can judge if it's right or wrong. So doubt, so discussion, and that's how propaganda basically works.
Yeah, sure. That's and one remark. So we examined to learn a lot of the fakes, and one of the fakes that the Russians said that near the Solidar it was the NATO units. So they fought not against the Ukrainians, but against the NATO units. So you know that.
How would they know?
Yeah, sure. So because for the Russians, after the fail of the full-scale invasion in 2-3 days, so they just became a new narrative. They thought against the all NATO. So the NATO, like the millions of the soldiers and a lot of the equipment, etc., etc. But you know that there are no proofs that any NATO soldier on the territory of Ukraine.
There are no NATO soldiers fighting. We have Ukrainian Legion, where foreign volunteers are fighting, and they're doing a great job. It's a great fighting force, but there aren't that many of them. Unfortunately, yes. So they don't bring they're not a decisive factor at the battlefield.
It's very, very painful for the Russians that say that they are lose to Ukrainians because they outnumber 3 times and more, and in equipment just 5-10 times more. And the most Ukrainian equipment before the war, it was Soviet type equipment. It's unfortunately not new jets and so on and so on, but in fact we can see that in the battlefield they lost a lot of the forces, they lost a lot of the equipment, and despite the fact that there are no NATO soldiers. So maybe if the NATO started this war finished in 2-3 days, but in not favor of the Russians. Okay, what is your message to Europeans, or maybe to the people of the world? Because the people of the world, they must to hear our voice from Ukraine. So what is your message to them? What them to do? Because in these circumstances, there's a lot of the people, they don't know about Ukraine a lot, but they know about the Ukraine a little. So what's the main message?
Well, The main message is that we are fighting for global values here, for freedom, for freedom of speech, obviously, which, as we can see in Russia, is like is non-existing. Probably the most important thing that I would like to get across to our Western partners and to people across the world, that it's a very simple and straightforward war, where the stronger bully tried to attack a weaker nation and got his ass kicked, basically, or is getting his ass kicked. And it's not easy. We are paying very, very, very high price for this. We are losing our best man, and we need help. We need help from the West, from everybody to continue this struggle. And I would like them to understand that it's not only our struggle. It's a clash of world views. Well, you probably understand what I mean.
It's like the war between the good and evil. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you want to win? If we lose, it won't be a loss of Ukraine. It will change the world forever.
So the next step, it will be the Baltic states, the Poland, the Moldova, Georgia, etc., etc.
Exactly.
And for example, the Baltic states leaders, they understand it, and the Polish leaders understand, but some leaders do not. I have a very personal question. What is the victory meaning for you?
Well, first of all, expulsion of the occupying forces from all our lands, like we said, say borders of 91, restoring the borders of 91. But that's not enough. We need to build a strong democratic Ukraine, so this war can never happen again. Because even if we expel Russia to free our lands, and nothing else will change, nothing will change in Russia, nothing will change in Ukraine, nothing will change in the world, we are doomed to repeat this scenario. Maybe Russia won't even try to invade Ukraine next. Maybe they'll find an easier target, as for example Belarus or Baltic states. But it will continue. So for me, victory is expelling the invaders and building a strong Ukraine with a strong military, so something like that could never happen again.
It's maybe the world court on the bandits, because they are really criminals.
Yeah. There must be responsibility for what has been done. An international court is a must. Yeah. Sure. There has to be a definitive opinion from the whole world community on this action.
To prevent it from happening again, yeah?
Exactly.
And do you think that the regime in Russian Federation could change the behavior of the state? Because you know that a lot of voices say that the Russia will be the same. Doesn't matter, Putin or Patrushev or some kind of the liberal forces. So it's just existential fear to the world and existential threat to Ukraine.
Well, I can't disagree with that, because if you look at the history of Russia, that has always been their position in the world. Most of the time they were openly aggressive, but some of the time covertly aggressive, but aggressive nevertheless, They always position themselves against the West, against Europe, and even against their own people. The elites always subjugated the majority of the population through so many means, latest being propaganda and very tight state control. So yeah, something has to change, and I don't think it's as simple as changing the regime. I think there must be more needs to be done.
Something must change in the minds of the
yes,
people.
Exactly.
Yeah? Sure.
Exactly.
Thank you for this dialogue, for this time, and maybe the very last question. Yes, very personal too, but 3 things you wanted to do after the victory, not related to the war, of course. Do you have some dreams?
Yeah, I would like to travel.
Yeah, sure. What kind of the country?
That's something I miss a lot. I've traveled to most of Europe, so I would like to go a bit farther. Asia, South America is something that fascinated me for all my life. I would like to visit those places. Start my own family, have children. Raise my children so they can be productive members of society. Patriots, that's something that's important to me. Third thing, I'll do something for my country.
For example?
I'm not sure yet. Well, for now I'm a soldier, and till the end of this war I will be a soldier. But after that I would really like to work for my country. Well, I don't know what it will be, but I'm sure I'll find something.
Yeah, sure. It's very good words, and I hope it happens very soon. So thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, and I hope we'll have a productive cooperation in the Ukrainian Union.
Yeah, I'm sure, because our work maybe not so visible, but it's necessary. It's necessary to be done.
Yeah. Thank you.